Hello again. It's the Patty and Jane Show. I'm Jane Sanford, founder of equipyourteen.com, and this is my partner and my co-host, Patti Handy. I'm a marketing consultant by day, but also very passionate about teen issues, and as a parent of a teen, an 18-year-old girl, almost 18-year-old girl. This show is about encouraging and informing parents of teens and having conversations about raising teens and the issues that we face. And Patty, you want to do a quick intro on you?
Sure. Just a quick heads up, Jane, you're kind of cutting in and out, so I'm not sure if it's one of our computers or the Blab site or what it is, but I don't know if I'm cutting in and out, but you're kind of freeze frame, then you'll come through. So am I coming through okay?
Yeah, I can hear you really well. So I don't know if that's your connection or if it's actually happening for other people, but we'll just forge ahead.
Okay. It might be my deal then.
But or just if I go dark or something and I'm just gone, let me know. I'll try to get back in.
Okay. Yeah. If I suddenly go away, I didn't go away. My computer just died.
Okay.
So yes, hello, I am Patty Handy. I am a mortgage advisor by day, and I'm an author, written a couple books. I also have a 19-year-old son myself, and have been navigating the waters of a mom with a teenager. Also the founder of Teens Cash Coach and love empowering teens, helping the next generation become independent and strong, and also helping the parents get through this crazy time.
Well, and tonight we're going
to have a really fun topic tonight.
Fun-ish. No, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's dating, and dating is an antiquated word. When I don't think teens really say that they're dating anymore, but that was definitely a term that we used when I was in school. Although really it's about hanging out, and we're talking about romantic or not too romantic relationships, boys and girls, and how a parent can have a really big impact on the way their teen views those relationships, how they're able to relate to each other, how healthy they feel about themselves during that time. And it's a really, really huge topic, very, very big. So we're just going to touch on a few things tonight. And Patty, I was thinking, you and I have talked about this a lot, and you have a boy, I have a girl. So it's a little bit different from both sides, but when Natalie was younger, I think that I can talk about this best from what I actually know and have experienced. And so I was a director of youth ministries for several years. And one of my jobs during that time was to do a weekend, a sexuality weekend. And we would talk about biblically, what is sex and how is that impacting us. But really, it was, to me, more of a time that we talked about, what's really going on for them. And it's a broader subject than sex, but certainly that comes into play. And that's what a lot of parents just freak out. They're scared. It's a hard subject to talk about. And if you're talking, like in your case, you're a single mom, or you have been and you have a son. So you're not going to, so for you, I think it's hard for single moms to have that conversation. Not everybody is as great a communicator as you are. So I think that you're going to bring in a good perspective to this tonight too, because, I was in a situation where my daughter, when she was 11, 12 years old, we were homeschooling her. So, certainly I had a very close relationship with her. And we started that conversation early because I had other moms who had told me that they had started that conversation early and how it kind of worked out for them. I also have a lot of older nieces and nephews, and it's seen, a lot of different things happening in their lives, and plus all the lives of my teens that I worked with. So I guess from a personal note, first of all, here's a statistic that's alarming. Let's just say two alarming statistics from the top. One is that there's a statistic, and I can put it up on the site where I got it, but I did check the source, and it seems legit. 34% of American teenage girls will be pregnant at least once before they're 20. So before they're 20 means 19 and younger, 34%. So or another statistic which was similar was 3 and 10. Another just incidental statistic was when Natalie was in 7th grade, she was in a Girl Scout troop, and there was another Girl Scout mom who was a counselor at the local, one of the local junior high schools. And I guess she was getting ready. If she'd been going to regular junior high school, she would have been going, not to this school, but that was that year before they all went to 7th grade. And this woman told me that, and this is just a statistic that's hard to even get my mind around, but she said that their statistics, and we're in Austin, Texas, was that 50 to 75% of the students graduating from 8th grade had already had sex. 50 to 75%. So if you're in 8th grade, you are 13 to 14. So I remember she told me that, and I thought, that cannot be right. That's a crazy statistic. But she said, we actually think if you look at the 50% side, that's an underreported number. We think it is the closer to 75% side. So I don't know where she, that's just a anecdotal thing. I didn't see her statistics. I don't know who she was asking, but the fact that it was that high was shocking. So, yeah, that was a crazy number to hear. I do know from my own, working with the teens that one of the things that came up, and I guess we're kind of diving right into talking about sex, but I think the reason I'm starting there is because I want to back up and talk about dating and relationships from that point. But one of the things that I learned was that there, because people didn't want to get pregnant, there was this kind of attitude that oral sex was the same as kissing. It's the same. It's the same exact intimacy level. And I remember when I first heard that, I was really surprised, because to me, it's not at all the same as kissing. But that was not an unusual standpoint. It wasn't like somebody said that and the whole room went like, ooh, they all went like, yeah, it's kind of the same. The big thing is you just don't want to get pregnant. That's the thing. You don't want to get pregnant. So things you can do, so you're really still technically not having sex, but to me, that's an intimacy level that you definitely want to be looking at as you want your, so the point about that is, what do you do? What do you do as a parent, with STDs, with the chance of getting sick, the chance of, having a bad self-image, all of that, and just being too immature to handle a sexual relationship early. And I really do think, and I would like your opinion on this, Patti, I really think that no matter what a girl says, when she says, yeah, I'm have all these partners and I'm totally fine with that, I don't totally believe that. And I don't really believe it from the guy's standpoint. I think that there is something that when you have an encounter with someone, you actually do give a piece of yourself to them, whether you're thinking that you're doing it or whether you're not. And that slowly you give up a lot of yourself in those relationships, and that that it can really affect your self-esteem and who you are. Now, maybe I'm just totally old-fashioned, but I do. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's absolutely a situation where even the girls, from what I'm hearing, the girls are being more aggressive with the guys, and they do think, both guys and the girls don't think that oral sex is considered sex. It's not intercourse, so it's not a sexual encounter. They fail to realize that the diseases that you can still get, the fact that it is sex, it is a compromised situation. You can get sick. I agree with you that a little bit of your confidence, a little bit of your self-esteem is slowly eaten away when you engage in that. Just like when you lie, when you lie to somebody, even if you're not caught, you know you've lied, and a small part of you is being chewed away. And the confidence level over a period of time will be completely in the toilet. And what I've shared with my son is when you find the love of your life, when you find the woman that you want to marry and that you would just do anything for, and she asks you the question, which will come up at some point, how many women have you been with? How many girls have you been with in the past? And if you have a laundry list, if you've been just reckless, if you've been, somebody that has just done it casually over and over, it's not going to go off really well. The same way he would not like it if he heard that she was reckless or, had a laundry list of guys that she was with. You don't want to find a mate that you are absolutely crazy in love with, that you want to marry, to find out that they've been with, a boatload of people. It's not really, and maybe I'm, the old fashioned one here too, but I have to believe that these kids know in their heart, they might not know what we know as, at our age, but they have to know that it's not in the best interest long term. It's more of an immediate gratification thing. And yeah, when I was doing some of my research, I had read that 50% of teens between 15 and 19
I'm sure
have
that's
had
true.
oral sex.
I would say
50.
But I'm sure that statistic is
crazy.
Is right. And I guess to me, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not here to judge parents. I'm not here to judge teenagers. That's not the point. I guess in my support of parenting, of saying, let's be intentional about what we're doing. Let's think about it maybe before we get there. If you have a 12-year-old. So one of the things that I did that worked, it seems to have worked. Natalie seems to have really felt that it was a positive thing in her life, was when she was 11 years old, some friends of mine had done this, and they had said they had done a purity weekend with their child. So a mom would take a daughter, or a husband might take a son, and it's kind of like a coming of age thing. Now, for us, I bought a curriculum, and it was Christian based, but you can do this if that's not if that's not where you're coming from. You can still talk about all these things. And what you're doing is you're saying on this weekend, you are growing up, and this weekend is a milestone in your life. And this is the weekend that we're going to talk about some things that we're going to talk about that are things that will affect you as an adult, and we're going to make some agreements, and we're going to, and then we're also just going to have a wonderful time. And there was a little curriculum that went with it, and I kind of picked and choose what I wanted to do from the curriculum. I didn't do the whole thing. We did listen to some tapes. There was one that was kind of embarrassing. We're like, whoa, I was in the car. And we listened to him in the car before we went away for a weekend and stayed at kind of an inexpensive bed and breakfast, but it was really sweet. And, we went to dinner, we did some shopping, and then I gave her a ring that was, just a reminder of how we felt about her. And I gave her a letter from me, and I gave her a letter from her dad that basically said how proud we were of her and how special and what a treasure she was to us. And that her dad said that, he wanted to protect her, and it was really about treasuring her, and that she had reached this milestone and having this thing. So, yeah. But she talked about that weekend. She would go back to it and say, Mom, that was so much fun. That was such a great weekend. I'm so glad we did that. And then I also at the same time ran across this book, and I bought it for my husband. I'm going to hold it up here. And it's called Interviewing Your Daughter's Date, 8 Steps to No Regrets by Dennis Rainey. And so I read the book. And then during the weekend, I said, Natalie, this is coming from a place that after working with teens um, for years, I had gotten to a point where I just thought, there's nothing to be afraid of. The mistake that people make is in not talking about things. It doesn't mean everyone's going to make the right choice all the time, and it doesn't mean that if they make the wrong choice, you're not going to forgive them and move past it. But why not try your best to give everybody the best chance of success? And so, so Glenn had this book, and of course she was only 12, so at the time he's like, oh yeah, I'll interview her tapes. And then she turned 16. So, and in the homeschool community, there's a lot of stuff you do kind of as groups. Parents are very involved usually. So it's not exactly the same culture you would have in a public school, or because she did go to public school for a little while. She's gone to private school, and she's also homeschooled. So, but in the homeschool environment, you're going to have parents around most of the time. So for her, dating wasn't really, getting asked to a dance, for instance, didn't anything like that. They have a big formal every year. She had a lot of different activities that she did, but those were activities with other people, with parents around. So, but when she was 16, she did get asked to a formal dance by a boy, and she knew that her dad was going to interview him. So she said, "You can, I would like to go with you, but you're going to have to talk to my dad first." And so Glenn got ready, and he had notes. They're right here. Here they are, the little notes on a card, because it was his first time doing it. But he met with the boy, and they went through a little interview. And I can tell you just basically, what's on it in a second. But they went through this interview, and the main thing that it's saying is that this is my daughter, and she's precious to me. And I need to know that you know what your job is when you're with her, which is to protect her and to take care of her. And there's another thing, and you kind of touched on it earlier. There's another thing that he talks about in this book, which is that you're probably going to get married one day, and someone is out with your wife tonight, your future wife. And I want you to treat my daughter the way you hope someone is treating your future wife tonight. So, and I did too. And then there was this other single mom. She was great. She had a great thing. She would do this talk with her daughters, the guys, but they were coming to go out with her daughter. And she would say, "Hey, that's a pretty nice car you have." And they were like, "Yeah, yeah." And she's like, Can I have it? Can I borrow it?" She's like, "Because, don't you think you'd like to get to know me a little bit before I just took your keys and drove off in your car?" "Well, yeah. Well, my daughter's more precious to me than your car is to you. So, you would want someone to take care of your car. Well, a million times that is how I want you to take care of my daughter." I thought that was a really cool idea from the, but anyway, so, Glenn was, nervous. This is not something he normally does. But he did get through the interview, and the boy, was very receptive to it. And they dated for a while, and then they broke up. But at the end of that relationship, even though it was, it's always hard to break up. That's always a painful thing that goes on. But, it wasn't totally devastating, because they had respected each other during that time. And I know that's shooting for the moon to say every relationship's like this. But at the minimum, you need to know who your kids are with, know who your teens are with, know who their friends are. You may not even think the person's that great, but you need to know them, and you need to know their parents. If they say they're going over to someone's house whose parents are home, you need to make sure their parents are home.
Yeah. The challenge with that, though, the harder it gets with that is that as they get older, like my son is 19, when he's, he turned 18, and he's in college, I don't know all of his friends. There's no way for me to know. I don't know the parents. And at 19 now, it's really hard, because I don't feel like I have that connection to his friends. and that connection. I mean, the parents had no clue. So it's a more of a challenge. So the earlier years, like you were saying before, the earlier you have these conversations with your kids and keep that communication open, it's huge. And I think when it comes to sex, that's something else that I, learned through my studies here is that, the kids aren't gonna, I mean, I guess there would be some kids, but most kids aren't comfortable talking to their parents about kids or about sex. So they have resources for kids to go to, websites to get accurate information, because what they were saying was that most kids will go online to find out information about sex and what's right, wrong, whatever. And so much online is wrong and it's just junk. So to go to the right sites, something you said earlier, I want to go back on. It was kind of interesting. One of the things that I had heard was so much of the dating these days is
right.
in groups. Oftentimes one of the guys, like this one mom talked about how this guy pulls out his cell phone, calls the girl, he's outside, says, "I'm here, like, come on out." Didn't even come to the door. And she's like, "Tell him to get to the door, come in the house, I want to meet him." So it's like, what kid would
who has
do that?
Who taught that boy?
Like,
I mean, did that boy even get any kind of education on how to go pick up a girl?
And meet the parents, shake their hands, have a conversation. What time do you want her home, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's it's a great point. But these kids are so casual with their phones and the texting and the group it's a whole different ball game today. So when we talk to them as parents, we're talking a foreign language, and it's challenging. The other thing is that they're meeting online. There's a gazillion apps for meeting somebody at all ages, and online, so that's scary. It's like, what? So again, the bottom line is it comes down to having those conversations, like anything, raising a teenager. The more open communication, the more safe they feel in talking to us, the less judging that we do. Excuse me.
I think
so. Yeah, it's just
it is. And I think as they get older, just like everything we talk about here, you really move from parenting to mentoring. And I think that I can't. Once someone's 18, they're an adult. They can walk out the door and not come back, and there's really nothing you're going to be able to do about it. But so I do think there's a difference between someone who's 12, someone who's 16, someone who's 18, and also just to try, it's not about saying, it's about trying to communicate why this is a good choice to to say no or to have boundaries. But there's also this other idea too. There was a at our gym, they would do a daddy-daughter dance once a year, and this is when Natalie was little. And when she was little, and so Glenn would take her and they'd get all dressed up and they'd go. And one of the things we talked about was, just like the boy who pulls up and pulls out his cell phone and goes, "Hey," it's not even honking anymore. It's just like, "I'm texting you, get out here, get in the car." And I'm sure he doesn't say "get out here," but that's what it appears to me to do. So, but I was talking to my husband about it and saying it's a way of demonstrating this is what a gentleman does. This is how a gentleman treats you. A gentleman opens the door for you, not out of disrespect, but out of respect. That a woman, that it's not that you take care of your date when you're on a date or when you go somewhere. That you don't go to a party and leave her for 6 hours with people she doesn't know and then show back up. That if someone does that, that is not a respectful person. You can call one. Call us. We're not going to judge you. Call us whatever time. We will come to get you wherever you are. Even if you're 20, we'll come and get you if that's what needs to happen. But just to demonstrate to your son or daughter, this is what it's supposed to be like. That this is how you treat a woman or how you want, you know, that because a lot of teens never see that. I used to do this thing with them where we would do every week we would do some etiquette. This is which fork to use. This is how you pull a chair out for a woman. You wouldn't believe that was always fun because somebody would always miss, you know, because it's like a little dance. Like the person pulls it out, you kind of scoot, you're doing this, you know, and we would, but really most of them had never done it. So I would get all this random stuff for on etiquette, and we would talk about that. But you know, there are people that they weren't even taught themselves. So how are they supposed to teach their teens? So
yeah. Cotillion, I don't know if they even have them anymore, but my niece and nephew, when they were younger, did cotillion.
I don't know
if you guys have that,
but I know they're still around.
All about, yeah. I think it's fantastic because they learned, you know, actually Blake went, my son went once, gosh, I don't know how old he was young, but it was opening, you know, the chair, you know, kind of get you juice or punch or whatever, just how to treat, you know, the girl, dancing, how to dance. I mean, it was fantastic, and yeah, I would love to see, you know, more of that for sure. Let me ask you a question. What is your idea or thoughts on curfew with the different age brackets? And I guess what I'm struggling with is, you know, when they're 18, like my son is, he still has a curfew. He's living at home. He has a curfew, and you know, he wants it to be a lot later than I want it to be. His curfew is 1 o'clock, which gives him plenty of time to, you know, do whatever, and he'd like to see it later, 2-ish or later. And you know, I've explained to him, and I have actually. A friend who was in the sheriff department and gave me the statistics of the number of people on the road who are intoxicated or under the influence of something. And after 2 o'clock, 50% of the people on the road are intoxicated at some level. So after 2, and that's because bars close at 2. So a lot of people on the road are leaving bars. And like from 12 to 2, 25% are under the influence. So, you know, after 2 o'clock, you're looking for trouble. And I don't care how safe a driver you are, if the other idiots are, you know, going through red lights or crossing over yellow lines or whatever, it's not about how good a driver you are. So I've always said, you know, that just doesn't work for me, because that's just, you know, you don't need that extra hour, and that extra hour is just a lot more trouble. So again, because he's 19, it's a headbutt, but he's been really respectful, and I have to give him a lot of credit for that. He's, you know, short of a particular, you know, a concert or something special, it's 1 o'clock and he shows up at 1 o'clock. But somebody who's 15, 16, and then 18, what are your thoughts on curfew?
You know, I think, so I would say, you know, curfew doesn't have as much to do with things before they're driving as it does after they're driving. Because before they're driving, you're either driving them somewhere or someone else's parents are driving them somewhere usually. And so you can say, you know, you're going to say, well, when are you going to be home? We're going to be home.
Yeah.
I know my curfew in our family was always midnight. It was midnight until I graduated from high school, and then it was 1. And I can remember the first time I went out and tried to stay out until 1, there was nothing going on, because in the neighborhood that I lived in, it wasn't like there were bars right there. You had to go into Old Town. I grew up in Alexandria. You had to go to Old Town to go to bars. So where I was, just everybody was at home in bed. I mean, he was like, what am I doing? I think I came at like 12:15 just to be like, yes, I stayed out past 12. But you know, now I think you have to decide. It also depends on the family. Some families are stay up later at night. Some families don't. I think the thing is, whatever the time is that you set. So, you know, if they're in school, then you're going to say, you know, then they have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. You know, you're going to have some amount of curfew just so that they can get home and get in bed and hopefully get to sleep at some point. I mean, teenagers, you know, notoriously stay up at night. But so, you know, I guess I would say whatever it is that's set, the question isn't so much the time as whether the person is able to respect that rule. And no, because it's not necessarily the time, it's the fact that you care enough to give them a time. Teenagers want boundaries. They're one of my sisters used to say they're children in big bodies. They still need to know that you are there, that you're a rock in their life. And even though it can feel like it's unmanageable, they are thriving on your strength. And so you need to say, it's the same thing as this book that says, I care enough about you to want to know who this guy is who's taking you out. And if I don't like him because he, is scary, or he's completely rude, or he has, no ambition, or he's clearly snide and has no respect for me, you're not going out with him. But that's as a protection for you, because if he's not going to be nice to me, he is not going to be nice to you. And I don't want you to be alone with him somewhere. And so I think, and what's interesting, right before we started talking, I ran out and said, Natalie, let me ask you something. Remember this book? Because she actually said, what is he going to say to him? I said, here, read it. This is what he's going to say to him. And so she read it. She was like, good, he should say those things. That's good. So, but the fact is, that gives her a basis of something, a rock to cling to say, I am being cared for. And my parents are going to, they're not, and they're not going to be mean to somebody, but they're not going to let, they're going to support me in how I need to be supported. And I think it's the same thing with curfew. You're saying, I love you. I don't want you on the road at 2, because at 2, there's a 50% chance somebody drunk is driving right next to you. So, it's really more about, can you respect that, please? If you're going to live here, this is what we need to be doing. I don't know. Longing.
Yeah. And thankfully he's really great about that. So I'm glad. I wanted to share a couple resources, some websites that I found that for those parents who want to give their kids, like if your kids aren't one to have, easy conversation with regards to sex or relationships, there's some websites that are specifically for teens with very accurate information, not false information that they might be getting. So I have 4 websites that I want to share as a good resource. The first one is teenhealthfx.com. So teen health, and then F as in Frank, X as in Xerox.com. The next one is sex, etc. So SEXETC.org. And then ASHASTD.org. It's an acronym for something. ASHASTD.org. And then the last one is youngwomenshealth.org. So those are 4 sites that are great to send your kids to if you're having a conversation, they're just shutting down. This is something that is a good source. To say, hey, fine, go look at this website.
What's the last one? I got 3 of them up there.
Young Women's
Okay, so is there apostrophe or probably not? Oops.
No, it's just young and then women's.
Young Women's Health.
Women's Health.
I put yeah.
Health.
Young Women's
It's actually
Health.org. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So great. Those are great, and
So,
like I said, this. I know that everybody has a different road to travel with their teens, and maybe you're going along and you have a son or a daughter, and they're already sexually active, but it's not too late to talk about, you can make a change. The person can, whether they're sexually active or you can start over. You can start over and say, okay, you know, is this something that you want to continue doing? And you know, and there is that's one thing about life, is that you can always change how you're showing up. But I do think talking to teens early is because when they're a little bit younger, they're a little more open to hearing from you about it. And if you can make an agreement like we did with Natalie, that her dad and I were going to be a part of the decision about when she started dating. That's and we wanted an agreement that was okay with her. And she at the time she said yes, that's absolutely okay. You know, because we are older and we have more world knowledge, so we might notice about someone something that you might not notice about them. And you know, it's like someone who's still coachable. And so it doesn't mean she's not going to get her heart broken, or that she's not going to make a mistake or whatever, but she knows that she can talk to us no matter what, and she knows we're going to do our best to help her to make good decisions. And when she's older, she'll be making her own decisions about that, you know.
That's the fact that she has a safe environment and she's comfortable speaking with you. That is huge. And I think the more we can empower our kids, give them the confidence, so that if they're in a situation where they're, you know, being pushed into doing something that they don't want to do, they can say, no, I'm not okay with this, you know, back off or whatever. And that takes a certain confidence and a certain self-esteem and an independence. So that conversation, that environment fosters that, and I think that's fantastic. Another thing that I wanted sort of to mention here, and I think you mentioned this before, Jean, in the book, that the hours between 3 and 6 p.m. is the biggest time. That's the trouble. After school, mom and dad aren't home, and they're, you know, it's suggested that if you work, you know, outside the home, pop in unexpectedly, or have a neighbor pop in unexpectedly, just at random days, random times, because that's when they're in trouble. They're having these sexual encounters.
It doesn't necessarily happen,
you know,
at night.
doing the drugs,
and I think that it's a you know, and it's not about trying to trap somebody. It's about parenting, and parenting is a time-consuming thing. And just because somebody, you know, because they're not toddlers anymore, they need you more as teens than they needed you as a toddler. And it is tiring, and they stay up late, and there is a sacrifice that's involved, but you're almost there. It's a few more years, and they're going to be out of the house and on their own. So you know, I just want to encourage you to stay the course and to be there. And you know, certainly Patti and I would love to talk more about this subject. We could go on all night about this, because it's really a big one. It's a big part of what's happening in the teen years. And you know, I don't have all the answers. Patti doesn't. But it's something with an open conversation that we can encourage each other and you know, share good information together. So anyway, well, this has been a good talk.
Absolutely.
And we will be back next week. We'll be back on Tuesday next week. Yeah. And we will be posting this to our respective sites, to equipyourteen.com and teenscashcoach.com. And as always, if you have any suggestions and ideas that you want to talk about, we'd love to hear from you on that. And we will be seeing you next week. Thank you for joining us. Bye.